and welcome to Queer Biz Podcast. My name's Kerry King. We are on episode 14 now. So Kerry, and today we have in...
Right, hi. Hello, Kerry.
What's your name?
Haven't seen you for ages. Yeah, so my name's Lilly Newton. My
Excellent.
pronouns are she and her.
Excellent. My pronouns are also she, her, and we have producer Cal.
Hello.
Who identifies as...
He, him.
He, him. Thank you very much.
Represent.
So, Lily, we've known each other a couple of years, yeah, probably since the start of Dear and Pride. And the reason I think I got to know you was because you run Oasis.
I do.
Which is, I would describe as a transport group. Is that right?
Yeah, so that's the byline. You know, we're a self-funded, largely speaking, though, you know, we've had some grants in the last few years, but self-funded, self-generated trans support group.
And what does support within Oasis look like?
For us, it's quite simple because actually we have to be careful that we don't overpromise or overstretch ourselves. So what we provide is a friendship group. Mm-hmm. We're a wonderful social friendship group. So we promise friendship, camaraderie, and I guess particularly relevant, a safe space to be yourself. So
yeah, super safe. And I've been along to a couple of Oasis meetings, and they're lovely, and everyone's so friendly and very inclusive and supportive of other people being in their space as well. Yeah. And I was very grateful that they kind of accepted, I guess, an outsider coming in and were just as eager to talk to me as I was to them, which was really lovely. And I've met quite a few of your members now several times because I see them out and about all the time, and it's lovely to know that I get to say hello to them wherever they are, and they vaguely recognise me.
Yeah, I mean, it's maybe we can explore a little bit of this with the meetings. It's about bringing the outside in. Mm-hmm. And we also try to bring the inside out, and I can talk about that. And hopefully we'll see you a lot over the summer.
Yes.
We're signed up to 8 Prides, I think.
Gosh.
So we're...
where are you off to then? Which Prides are you going to?
Gosh, now you're asking.
So you said Ely.
So I'll start at the beginning because it's easier if I do it this way in date order. Beccles.
Okay.
Lowestoft.
Right.
Bungay.
I didn't know Lowestoft had a Pride.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's cool.
Oh, Lowestoft Pride.
It was really good last year.
Mm-hmm.
He's in
really
Lowestoft.
Fun, yeah.
I didn't realise Beccles had a Pride, though.
Yeah.
I did know about Beccles.
I didn't realise there was enough people in Beccles to have a Pride event.
Well, maybe we'll come back to it, but I loved it because it was intimate. It was so intimate. So it's at the library. Last summer was a beautiful early summer's day, where a lovely summer's dress, and it was just outside on the green bit outside the library, and it was just so lovely.
Nice.
Whereas Norwich Pride is a completely different animal.
It is.
You know, this big, brash, bold, as big as a Pride I want to go to. I don't want to go to London or Brighton or any of that. It's too over Manchester.
Have you ever been to any of those? I haven't.
No.
Right.
No. Well, I do have a story how I took my mother to Brighton Pride by mistake. But maybe we won't have time for that. My mum was just, her mind was blown. I have to
bless
tell you.
her.
Absolutely blown.
Right,
so where
we've got
were
Beccles,
we?
Lowestoft.
Bungay.
Bungay. Oh, right.
Norwich.
Yes.
Thetford, Ely, Kings Lynn.
Great.
And there
Gosh, you
are other
going to be out and
prides
around.
either side of that.
Yeah.
One is in Galston and one is in Great Yarmouth. And not sure about Great Yarmouth because I'm not sure I want to go to Great Yarmouth, but that's
right. I wasn't sure
maybe
if
we can touch on that.
I think I'd heard that Great Yarmouth have cancelled for the last few years, but I wasn't sure the reasoning.
Oh, it all got very confusing.
Okay.
You know, where does Yarmouth finish and Galston start, for example?
Oh, I see.
There are bits that I think neither of them want to claim.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I didn't know Galston had its own separate Pride either.
Yeah, so that's the first Pride, 28th of June. How about that?
Oh, okay.
How about that off the top of my head?
I know, it's very impressive.
Also, whilst I'm here, because not only do I run Oasis or lead Oasis, I'm also part of the cooperative that runs Norwich Trans Pride.
Yes, of course.
And so also a chance to advertise the Trans Pride picnic, which will be on the Sunday the 6th of June.
Oh,
6th
fantastic.
of July.
Oh, July, right,
July,
okay.
I know,
oh,
sorry,
okay,
yeah.
excellent. No, that'd be great. Where's that going to be held?
Not sure at the moment, but
Okay.
probably in Waterloo Park like last year.
Okay, so keep an eye on socials.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic.
Yeah.
How long has Norwich Trans Pride been running?
This will be the 4th year, so this is the first year that I've been involved in the organisation. But yeah, it's been fantastic.
Oh, brilliant! Well,
Again,
I'll definitely try and get along to that one.
Real focus on safe places for our community to gather.
Yeah.
And last year was just absolutely fabulous. It was probably the hottest day of the year, which was, came with its downside, worrying about people burning. But it was delightful, just
fantastic.
low-key, relaxed, so many different communities within our community, young and old. I can say old as I am, ish.
Don't look a day over 21, Lily.
Well done. That's the right answer. So, yeah, it was just fabulous. So lots and lots of
Lots
pride.
to do, lots to be getting on with. When you go out to a pride, are you there to kind of offer? I mean, I imagine you, as a person, I know that you would just offer support anyway, as a trans person and as a part of Oasis. That is your kind of speciality, that you're naturally a very supportive and caring person. Would you look to kind of go out and offer support, or do you look to kind of give out leaflets as to what you do, or do you look to kind of educate people? Is there kind of a main theme of you being there?
I think you probably said all the things that we're trying to do, kind of, and I can add to that, what is the nature of Pride? Pride is a celebration, but Pride is also a protest. We mustn't forget how Pride, the roots of Pride, the men's gay Pride back in the early 70s, and how that's evolved to embrace the whole of the queer LGBT community.
Yeah.
So it's an opportunity for our voice to be heard. I thought last year Norwich Pride really focused on trans rights.
Yeah.
I hope they will again in the future this year.
Yes, I hope so
because obviously
too.
it's such a pertinent thing. Nick, who was leading Trans Pride at that, Norwich Pride at that time, made a really wonderful speech at the beginning of the march, which I thought was absolutely perfect.
Yes, it was. It was fantastic.
But it's also a celebration. I love it. Somebody asked me, what's sort of my favourite memory of Pride, and that probably is the Pride 3 years ago, 2022, which is obviously the first post-lockdown.
Yes.
And just getting there, and it was a beautiful day, nice, and getting into the forum where you will find the Oasis stall. Mm-hmm. And that feeling of, oh my God, we've made it. I think many of us during lockdown thought, God, our lives are never going to be the same again. Will we ever be another Pride? And just to get to the bridge to the other side, it was just so fantastic.
Yes, it was a very strange time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I started my first same-sex relationship during lockdown, and I think because of that, I know that there's a kind of running joke about, what do lesbians bring to a second date? The U-Haul, the moving van. So I'm aware of kind of stereotypes around the lesbian community that relationships tend to move fairly quickly anyway. But I think Chip and I probably accelerated that even more because we met. There was a November lockdown, during which we met online on Facebook dating, and then we met up in the December. We got together, and then January to March was another lockdown. So at which point we were living together. So it was kind of really accelerated because we didn't have a choice really. It was we can be together or we can be apart, and we liked each other enough to go, well, let's be together. But I think, because it was such a peculiar time, we didn't also really get a real feel for what each other's lives were really like, because we were meeting at a time where, you had to a safe distance and 2 meters and you were allowed to exercise once a day, and you were allowed to get your pet cared for, but you had to sit in the car park and the vet had to come and get the dog. And it was a really odd time. And when you're putting then a new relationship into that, and for me, a relationship with a gender that I hadn't considered before, it was a very, probably not the best time to start a relationship like that, but obviously you don't kind of have that forethought when you meet someone and you get excited and go, oh, great, let's see where this goes. But yeah, and then obviously when we came out of lockdown, then it was restrictions on, restrictions off, restrictions on, have a vaccine, restrictions off. No, let's go back. And it was a bizarre time. So I think, like you say, for a lot of us and a lot in the community, it was a very peculiar time that led to a lot of isolation for some people. But then we also then started making more of the online community and trying to make sure that we connected and we stayed connected somehow, even if it wasn't what we were used to. You're going to say something, aren't you?
No, I just think it's just seems so crazy how long ago it was.
I know. Mm-hmm. It almost feels to me now like it didn't happen. And I think I was thinking back the other day to a play I was doing in 2018, and I thought, oh my God, that was like 7 years ago. Yeah. I thought, where's all that time gone? I thought, oh, hang on a minute. A good 2 or 3 years of that was COVID. And now it's just this kind of blip that, I mean, killed thousands of people, but was also, it's really strange. Like it felt like it was going so slowly, and now it feels like it went so fast.
It was a very strange distortion in time.
Yeah, very odd. I mean, like before that, I didn't know that the entire country could stop.
No,
it was very, very peculiar. I was singing songs. I changed all the words to ABBA's "I Dreamed a Dream." No, thank you for the music. I changed that to "Thank you to the nurses," and then sang a little song on YouTube about thanking nurses and delivery drivers and spending all day asleep. It was a very odd time.
Yeah, it would say the world stood on its head to a degree. You know. Suddenly we realised what an amazing job people in the NHS do in such difficult circumstances, and we were going to pay them better, and we were going to do this, and we were going to do that. Has that happened?
No. Then we came out and there was a doctor's strike for ages because we didn't want to pay them better. And we stood out in the street and we clapped. Yeah. And because I live outside of town in Durham, we had saucepans, banging our saucepans and colanders. So, it was... Yeah, we said that we were very grateful, but then I'm not totally sure that we followed that through afterwards. No. Now, I was going to ask you, do you have a coming out story?
Funnily enough, yes, I do.
Would you mind telling us about it?
Well, funnily enough, the story I'm going to tell you was in lockdown.
Oh, really?
So, it goes something like this. I knew I was different around 10. Mm-hmm. What happened was my mum caught me dressing in her clothes. Now, I knew it was wrong because they were her clothes, not my mum's clothes. Sorry, her clothes, not my clothes.
Yeah.
And, but I didn't realise it was wrong because they were the clothes of the opposite gender, as my mother would have seen it. Mm-hmm. And my mum was quite cross, but she said to me, "Do you wish you'd been born a girl?" And without thinking, I said, "Yes, I do." And it was like, wow, the penny dropped.
That's really kind of insightful of your mum to say that, as opposed to just, "Why are you wearing my clothes?"
Yeah. Well, this is where lockdown comes into it. It was never mentioned between me and my mum again.
Wow.
For 50 years. That's a lot of years.
Wow.
50 years, giving my age away. And and it was kind of weird because I was an only child, and one of the things that happened. So, going back to that moment, I suddenly realised, wow, what does that mean for me? Now, this was back in, say, when would it have been? Say 1971. Mm-hmm. It's a long time ago. And I had no idea that you could consider changing gender.
Right.
You know, there was very little information.
Sure.
What information there was heavily sexualised. And so with that realisation came a lot of shame and guilt. So I was an only child, so and once I persuaded Mum and Dad that they could go out and I didn't need a babysitter, of course, the first thing I did, I waited half an hour to be safe, in case I'd forgotten anything, and then I'd be in the wardrobe putting on my mum's clothes and testing out her makeup and everything. And, that's what I did throughout my childhood until the fateful day when I got a bit too big for my mum's clothes, broke the zip on a beautiful taffeta ball gown. Fortunately, I guess she never wore it again.
I got away with that one.
So, and there was never a question. She never asked me.
Right.
We never spoke about it. And then fast forward to the first Friday of lockdown. A bit of background to that. I came out the front door in 2018. It's the first time I'd ever been out, and that was on the 3rd of February 2018. First time I'd ever been outdoors, and I met my friend Serena in the Forum. So a lot of my life had been highly closeted, very private, lots of feelings of guilt, shame, cursed. I felt I was cursed because I've had an amazing life. I've had such a rich, interesting life. I've met so many wonderful people. I have a wonderful family. I'm very, very fortunate. And then there was this curse. There was this part of me. Sometime in around 2010, I had a sort of moment of realisation. I said, girl, you're getting too old. If you don't accept yourself, you're going to regret this.
Yeah, you're running out of time.
You don't want to get to your deathbed with all these regrets, and you've got to embrace who you are. And so it sort of started this process of changing, accepting who I was, talking to my partner about this, and my amazing supportive partner, who's obviously had to transition with me, to that point in 2018 when I walked through the door. And out I went into the outside world. And Leslie, my partner, she said, I didn't so much walk through the door, I catapulted through it. She said I was like the cork coming out of a champagne bottle. And that's how it feels. And I've had such amazing, you talk about living a dream. This is like living my dream. I could never have dreamt my life would be like it is today. But there was two parts to my life. So some days I couldn't be Lilly for all sorts of reasons, not least my mum. My mum lived in France, so she didn't need to know. That's how it felt.
Yeah.
But once I stopped working, I spent more and more time with my mum, and because she needed me to support her. She was widowed by that point. And always in my little carry-on bag, thank you, Ryanair, was a selection of clothes and dresses and stuff, makeup stuff. And so once if I was staying with her, mum had gone to bed, I'd go down and I was lucky I had a little apartment downstairs in mum's house, and I'd get changed and dress and stuff and could be myself very briefly overnight. Come lockdown, I thought, there's no way she could go through lockdown on her own. So I got a one-way ticket to France. First time I'd ever been. My mum had been living in France for about 30 years at that point.
Right.
There's no way that I can leave her on her own during lockdown. I'm in a position to go, so I went. First time I've ever gone somewhere with a one-way ticket. So I didn't come back for nearly 20 months.
Oh, gosh, you have gone a long time.
I'd gone a long time. So we came to the first Friday of lockdown. So I had, as I said, as usual, my Ryanair carry-on bag stuffed. I don't know how I managed to get so much stuff in. It was a miracle of packing so much stuff. And I thought, okay, it's now or never. I have to tell my mum. I can't not be myself. So first Friday of lockdown. Now, my mum lived with this lovely French farmhouse in this lovely French village, but every Friday was always fish and chips. I had a little taste of home, so I prepared the dinner, gave her a glass of wine. Do you want a glass of wine, Mum? Yeah. When we were eating, I gave her another glass. Very unusual for my mum. My mum didn't drink very much, but it was lockdown. It was weird.
Yeah.
It was just going to be me and her for 12 weeks. You know, that was the bare minimum that we knew at the time. So, and then finally served the pudding. I said, another glass, Mum. I've got something to tell you. Right. So that's when I came out to my mum.
Right. And how did she take it?
She had two ways. One was very endearing, very important to me. So there was a long silence while she processed this information. And interesting, she never acknowledged the fact of this incident when I was 10 years old.
Right.
No recollection, no nothing. And there was a long period of silence. So the first thing she said is, you can't be, because you like football, you like racing cars, and boy, do I love racing cars. And I said, I don't think that's going to change anything. You know, girls do, you know. And then the second thing, she said, are you safe?
Oh, bless her.
I'm worried that you're going to get picked on and or whatever. So I don't know what was in her mind, but I thought that was really reassuring. So it took 2 or 3 weeks before she would see me.
Right, okay.
Dressed. And I think as soon as she saw me and got an inkling of how I like to dress, because maybe she had this kind of very distorted image, you know, which might be influenced by what she'd read in the papers or what, you know, maybe she suffered the issue of not quite realising that a drag queen is different to a trans woman,
yes,
for example, or drag king different to a
trans
man or whatever. But yeah, so as soon as she saw me, she knew, and she found it much easier to accept me. But that first kind of, oh my God, you know, she's going to have to face me.
Was that terrifying for you?
No.
No? Oh, good.
No.
I think I might have been slightly terrified.
No. Well, don't forget, she was locked in with me. She had nowhere to go.
Yeah, that's true.
So she had no choice. I had all the power. But yeah.
You did.
Yeah.
Did you maintain a close relationship with your mum after that?
We'd always been close. Always, always, always. Though my mum struggled to express her feelings and do feelings generally. But yeah, I mean, you know, eventually I brought Mum back to the UK.
Right.
When sadly she died not that long after being back in the UK.
Oh, bless her.
So it's a great shame because I wanted to share this life, my life with her.
Yeah. You brought her back to Norwich?
Oh, yeah.
Norfolk?
Well, other than not Norwich, we live in Suffolk, so we're in a little place called Halesworth, and just over the border.
Halesworth, yes, I know Halesworth.
Yeah.
Oh, excellent. So did your mum get to meet any of your friends over here?
Yes, just once.
Right.
She was well enough, and one of the joys of being Oasis is that it's a wonderful social group. We have the Oasis Christmas dinner, we have the Oasis Christmas meeting, and then various friendship groups have all sorts of Christmas dinners. Mm-hmm. So Mum was able to come to one of the Christmas dinners with me.
Excellent. And did she kind of talk about it with you, or did she just kind of go along, enjoy herself and go home again? Did she mention it?
It was more that, I think, because of feelings, I think my mum avoided it. Mm-hmm. You know, for example, I can contrast it. You know, I mean, the other big moment of coming out was to my son.
Right.
And my son is a wonderfully politically aware, very astute, very level-headed individual who understands, or even understood, but understands the nuances of the whole politics around transgender issues, mm-hmm. and very much is an ally. Suddenly, he was faced with Dad. I'm still Dad as far as Joe's concerned. You know, suddenly had skin in the game.
Yes.
And so one of the, you know, we talk about it a lot. We constantly talk about it. And one of the things that it also made him think about was his own masculinity.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I suppose with that, there perhaps, when you're confronted and have to think about how this affects you as an individual and what your feelings are.
Mm-hmm.
And that was very much the case for my son, that he was a sort of period of reflection, not only of how to cope with this, with a dad who is trans. And I'm still dad because I'm the only person in the whole wide world that Joe would call dad.
Yes.
And I'm still dad when we're out in public.
I know other people like that who are still dad to their children, again, because they're the only person who has that name.
And that could change and evolve in the future, I don't know. And the same with my granddaughter. So my granddaughter, I'm still granddad. Got a lovely birthday card from her earlier this year, said, "Happy birthday, Granddad Lilly." And I thought, okay, that's my truth.
Yeah.
At the beginning, I I'm Lilly, she, her. What I should have added is I am a very, very out and proud trans woman. I'm being part of the trans community and being visible and to an extent vocal is very, very important for me. I in running Oasis, it's that classic standing on the shoulders of giants.
Mm-hmm.
And I very much stand on the shoulders of giants, which obviously includes Barbara Ross, who founded the group. And so it's important to me that our community that isn't forced to hide. And the great scary thing about what's happening at the moment is those that feel they can hide, this dreaded word pass, that's what they're going to do because they just ultimately just want to live their lives. But within that, are they being really authentic? And are they what's the right expression? Not giving back.
Yeah.
But I think it's very easy for me to say, I'm not trying to hold down a job. I'm not trying to find a job.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a certain detachment, and I'm really, really lucky to be in the position that I am. If I was in my 20s and felt I didn't have to broadcast that I was transgender, at the moment, why would you?
Yeah, absolutely. Have you experienced a lot of discrimination or bullying? Have you
None whatsoever.
No? Oh, that's amazing.
None whatsoever.
That's fantastic.
Occasionally I'm misgendered, but normally I give that person the benefit of the doubt, because obviously one of the problems, and we could talk about the need for children being supported with puberty blockers, but once, I felt I knew back in the 70s I had no choice but to go through puberty. There was no alternative. I didn't know of an alternative.
Mm-hmm.
I do remember lying in the bath as the hairs on my legs started to grow, and I was hoping they were blackheads. So I took a scrubbing brush to my legs. I only did it once because it really did hurt.
Yeah, I bet it did.
But and to a degree, I kind of welcomed puberty in so much that in the male changing rooms, you didn't want to be the last kid going through puberty because, my God, you were a victim or a ready-made victim for the bullies and the jocks and all those horrendous people. So so when people misgender me, I think, it's because they hear the voice. And I have, when my voice broke, it was quite a deep voice that I have.
Right.
I only think I've only once or twice been deliberately misgendered.
Right,
which
deliberately.
did upset me. But then my response was to talk to that person's supervisor, talk to that organisation about the need for training, and explain to them why this was so hurtful.
Yeah. And were they receptive?
They were receptive, yes.
Oh, excellent. That's good.
So that's what I always do, and would encourage any person, particularly say on the telephone. It's hard to hide your voice in the telephone.
Yes, of course.
And in fact, microphones tend to take out some of the nuances of your voice. And so, always I'd say to my friends, find out the name of the person, note the time that you made the call, because if you're calling into a call centre, they'll know when that call, because they'll have all of those logged, and complain.
Yeah.
The way to do it is not to get angry, but is to complain. And I guess that's, don't get angry, get even.
Yep.
Yeah.
With those experiences in mind, then how does it make you feel, and what are your sort of reflections on what Kerry's doing with Rainbow Assured and being that option for training and empowerment of businesses to do better and be better? Is it a sort of a ray of sunshine to have somebody out there that is wanting to make businesses safer spaces for the community?
Well, that's of course, without question, and the work that Kerry's doing is so valuable. Because, as I said, I'm not in an environment where I'm trying to hold down a job.
Mm-hmm.
When I felt lucky from the point of view that I worked in an industry where men and women were treated pretty equally, because the thing that counted was your sales figures. So I was in sales and marketing for many, many years.
Right.
And some of the best account managers I ever knew were female,
Mm-hmm.
and amazing role models to me. But that's not true of everywhere.
Yeah,
and,
sure.
and we know about the glass ceiling, we know about discrimination, and that's discrimination against women, discrimination against people in the LGBT queer community is there, and we have to fight against it. So education, as I say, it's don't get angry,
Vital.
Educate.
Could you please clarify for us the recent ruling through the Supreme Court and what it actually means for trans people? Because I'd like people to be, I think there's a lot of disinformation around, and people are being very combative and very defensive because they don't actually understand what the implications of it. I know that there's still kind of guidance coming out around how that will actually affect kind of the day-to-day. But could you clarify what the ruling was and what the impact is to the trans community?
Well, can I clarify that or summarise it?
I'm just not sure if I would word it very well, and I think you'll word it better.
Okay, well, let me take a run at it and see how we get on. So the ruling was very, very specific, and was an unusual case because of something that the Scottish government did. So the ruling was against the Scottish government, but has implications against laws. And they ruled that in a particular scenario, trans people with a gender recognition certificate could be counted as women. And this was in a situation was trying to achieve equilibrium between the people that made up particular boards, boards of governance.
Mm-hmm.
So this group for Scottish women challenged that. And so effectively the ruling was that trans people in law at the moment are of their birth gender.
Right. And that's, am I right in thinking that's under the Equality Act?
Right. So what the implications are is law is always about interpretation and precedent. So in a way, we don't strictly know exactly what that means.
Yeah.
And some of the damage was done beforehand anyway. There was the famous, do you know of the Fawcett case?
I don't think I do.
So this woman, Fawcett, challenged, and in fact it wasn't even that she was fired. She didn't have a contract renewed, and she won this case that she didn't have a contract renewed because she was a very vocal advocate of what you might call gender critical.
Right.
So the right to call, for example, transgender women men and vice versa. And effectively she won that case from a point of view that confirmed that gender critical views are a protected characteristic under the Equalities Act in the same way that gender and assumed gender or transition gender is also a protected characteristic. So you have some conflict between those two.
Absolutely.
And that's really been at the root of all of this discussion and argument. And this Supreme Court ruling was that in the case of this particular piece of legislation, that trans women could not be counted as women in this desire to have equality in these board of trustees or whatever it was.
Right.
So what does it mean? Well, this is where the so-called Equal Opportunities Commission come into bearing, because very quickly they issued this piece of advice that said that trans people should use the toilet of their birth
Assigned
sex.
at birth, yeah.
Sex assigned at birth.
Yeah.
But also they issued some very contradictory information as well. So effectively, trans men can't use the toilet at all now. If you look at that particular
yes, that's
guidance.
what I spotted. Yeah.
So it's a nonsense. So they are saying that I should use the men's toilet, and frankly, I'm not going to.
No.
I am definitely not going to.
No.
So we shall see where that leads us to the future, and ultimately it's about claiming safe spaces. What is a safe space? Safe for who? Who can enter that space?
Yeah.
So effectively, so if you again, one of the safe spaces that often gets cited is refuges against domestic violence for women.
Yes, I've heard that.
And whether trans women are welcome in those spaces or not. And it's been a very moot point whether they're welcome in those spaces or not. I met a group in Ipswich actually called the Lighthouse, who are very, very welcoming of trans women in their spaces. And I guess it remains to be seen whether under this ruling and the guidance,
how that will be
whether they are
affected.
able to legally still do that.
Wow. It's shocking. I know the some of the things I've been surprised about since then are that like football and cricket have outlawed sort of trans women playing on women's teams, which I just feel like we're going backwards, not forwards. And I find it that all this progress that we made over years that took that much work to get it into equality in the first place, and I just feel like we're just falling over and going and just going backwards. It's so frustrating. And I think about all the work that went in to put it in there in the first place, that's now got to happen again by kind of the next generation or the pre-existing generation who fought the first time, who thought that they'd won a battle and are now going back to the start to do it all again. I feel very frustrated for the trans community, and obviously I want to help and support them as much as I can. I mentioned in the last episode that I get called Sir a lot because I have a slightly androgynous appearance. I mean, I look in the mirror and think, I don't know why people call me Sir, but I do get called Sir quite a lot. It doesn't bother me. But I sort of thought, what would be the situation if I went into a toilet and a woman said to me, well, you can't be in here because I'd been mistaken. What am I supposed to sort of go? Flash. These are my these are my genitals. It's not really something I feel comfortable with, nor do I feel I should have to explain why I'm using a women's toilet. And it's very. I don't know what the practical implications are going to be, and I don't want to feel bullied or discriminated against, and I imagine that the scenario for trans people is potentially frightening, to be challenged by people, especially people who now think that they've got something to kind of fall back on and go, well, I know it's this, I can do this. For me, it would seem like a very scary prospect. Do you feel that, or are you positive about the...
Okay, I'm a very positive person. So as I said, I'm going to carry on using the loo until somebody drags me out, I think. And obviously what they've created is something that's almost impossible to police. How do you police it? And I guess I can tie that into talking about sport. You know, I love my sport, love my Olympics. You know, and what we've seen in the last 4 years, perhaps, is a sudden, you know, and I guess if we could use a metaphor of a pendulum, you know, I guess since 2000 with the Equal Opportunities Act and the Gender Recognition Act, you know, we've seen the pendulum swing in favour of our community, to the trans community, and what we're now seeing is the pendulum start to sway back, and that's been happening in sport for some considerable time. So there is not a single sport in the Olympics that a trans woman can compete.
Wow.
Not a single one, apart from equestrian, because equestrian appears to be the only sport that I'm aware of in the Olympics where men and women, and those are not altogether sure, can compete on equal terms.
Right.
And I think that includes the sex of the horse as well.
Do you think that there will be a time in the future where, like we look at the Paralympic Games, that there will be some kind of LGBTQ games to take into account people's hormone levels and gender identities? Or do you think it will just kind of sort itself out somehow?
I really don't know. I think, see, the issue is between emotion and fact.
Yeah.
So if you talk about trans women in sport, you know, there's this argument, well, if you've been through a male puberty, you're bound to have an advantage. You know, it's obvious you have an advantage, even though trans women athletes are required to have a very low testosterone level.
Yes.
Lower than the levels of testosterone that can occur naturally in women.
Mm-hmm.
And they're the rules have changed over time, but that they're required to have had that level for some considerable time.
Right.
As it happens, I'm a runner.
Are you?
I am a runner.
I didn't know that.
And I, fortunately, I'm a solitary runner, so I don't ask for anybody's permission. I don't need people's permission to run. So, but I can tell you that I have been on hormone, estrogen and a T blocker for 3 years, and I can tell you that my running times have fallen off a cliff.
Yeah.
25% slower.
Wow.
I can't get close to the times that I could do 3 years ago. Now, I'm also 3 years older, and I'm at an age where, if you look at the qualification times, the times to qualify as an elite athlete also drop off quite considerably, because as you get to a certain age, you lose that muscle mass and stuff like that. So, you know, to counter the argument, there are quite a lot of information that plots the how your performance reduces as you've gone on to hormone therapy, and, you know, obviously particularly for trans women, kept their T level below that level.
Yeah.
But obviously none of this is you know, there's statistics and there's counter arguments, and, you know, what becomes the truth? So the truth is that emotion wins.
Yes.
It stands to reason. Just look at the pictures. And there was a very famous she almost got to race for Great Britain, Emily Bridges, who was a cyclist.
Mm-hmm.
And, Emily is tall for a woman. That's indisputable. But also you could see, if you looked at Emily's performance figures, and as an elite athlete, Emily's performance figures were recorded and tracked in some detail. You could see the drop-off as Emily transitioned.
Right.
So it's very, very, very difficult.
Yeah.
It's
going to be a conversation that goes on for longer.
And emotion wins the day, and I don't see any time soon.
No, and that's going to...
Any time soon, because obviously at the moment, the direction of travel is completely the wrong way.
Yeah.
And so with football and cricket, I think last week, football or rugby,
cricket,
they still allowed trans women to compete at club level, at amateur level, true amateur level. Now they've now said no. There's no ability for trans women to compete in female sport at any level. And within football, there were only 30 registered players in the amateur arena.
I knew that.
And there were over 10,000 players total.
Wow.
Registered. So it's and this thing, it's such a small percentage.
Yeah.
It's trans women effectively have been up until probably the last Olympic Games, have been able to compete in Olympic sports until this massive backlash happened. The numbers, I think, were so small. 3 athletes.
It's tiny.
And there was in the Tokyo Olympics in 2021, there was one trans woman, New Zealand weightlifter, and she came last.
Wow.
The other thing that's muddied the waters, and I think is coming back to the statement you said about your appearance. In the last Olympics, there was a huge foray around 2 boxers.
Boxers, yeah.
These boxers were not transgender. No. They were women possibly of, DSD, different sexual development.
Right.
Of which there are a number of African athletes that fit that characteristics. Notably, the famous one is Caster Semenya, who was a South African runner. Mm-hmm. And Caster Semenya was treated brutally by the sport and the sporting authorities. And coming back to the 2 boxers, it's because their appearance didn't suit Western European view on femininity. Yeah. And going back to the toilets, so are they going to say the only people that can use the toilets are people that meet Western European view of femininity, which probably includes me.
Yeah,
because
would include you more than me.
Because I'm a girly girl.
Yeah, you have long hair, you wear makeup, you wear dresses. I don't on any of those things.
Yeah, so can you only? It's just nuts.
And when it comes to sports, if you see me running, it'll be because there's something chasing me, so you should run too. And on that note, I'm afraid we need to wrap up. I hope you'll come back and see us again, because I feel like I could talk to you so much about so many more things. And it's been really fascinating having you on. Thank you for coming on.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's always a pleasure to see you, Kerry.
Thank you, Lilly.
I know we'll catch up on all those prides over the summer.
We've got lots to do.
And keep on doing what you're doing, because it's so, so important. And it's not just for my community, it is for my community, because my community is the queer community. Mm-hmm. It's the LGBT community. There is no LGBT or no LGB without the T. Yeah. But we're just part of the community. And Absolutely. It's a very special place to be.
It is. It's a lovely place to be, and I feel like I have a community that like a second family that I never had before, which is a really lovely feeling to have.
I absolutely echo that sentiment. Thank you.
So thank you so much for joining us for episode 14 of Queerly Biz with Rainbow Assured, making your workplace a safe space. See you next time.